I don't know why I picked that music this morning. Tuesday, September 16th. And yeah, man. So if everyone knows, yeah, my basement got flooded. So the studio is not the best right now. But the guest is none other than the legendary, the Godfather. And so if you guys know who that is, which I know you guys damn well do, it is Mike Metzger. What's up, Mike?
Oh, pretty good this morning. Just glad to be up. It's a beautiful day here in Big Bear, California, and just stoked to talk to you, Johnny.
Yeah, dude. Like, I was stoked when you said that you were like, "Fuck it, I'll talk to you." You know, why the hell not? I was like, "Sweet, let's have a conversation."
Yeah, let's
So
do it.
first off, Mike, I don't know if you remember, but um, I was winning the little Super America. They were on like the 110s up at Copper Mountain one year when I think you got third in the Supermoto series, and I got disqualified for taking out JD Beach in the stupid little 150 race.
I
But
don't remember. I do remember being at Copper Mountain to race supermoto. It was one of my favorite places to go and race, just up in the mountains and jamming around on motocross bikes. Pretty awesome.
yeah, no, I was super stoked to finally meet you. I was all of like 11 years old. But yeah, freaking the little Honda team, they disqualified me because I took out one of the leaders for first place, and they were like, "Hey, we can't have none of that." And I'm like, "Guys, these straightaways are 2 miles long, and I'm on a little 150. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing but time on stuff. I'm sorry that." Somebody's used a road racing line when we're doing 30 miles an hour, and they're like, well, we just can't have anybody being that aggressive. And they were giving up, a free motorcycle to win, which eventually Mike Alessi ended up winning it. But anyway, that's my story. I met you, and I also met you and um God, who was it? Anyway, he was an asshole. You were the person in my mind that was memorable because you were just it was dope to
Thank you.
meet you, dude. So that was the first time I became a huge fan. And, so I've been a fan since 11 years old. And that's my story.
Well, right on. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I want to know, like, because sometimes freestylers get, I wouldn't say a bad rap, but it's almost like they couldn't race, so they did freestyle. But what's the irony in that is a lot of the guys that race can't effing do freestyle. Like it's way scarier to try to do Supermans and lazy boys and all sorts of crazy shit on a dirt bike rather than just hitting a set of whoops. So, how
Yeah,
did
I
your
like to
story start?
think. Well, I like to think that I'm a racer, born and bred. My dad had me on a bike, it basically on his lap after I was born. Uh, Riding at 3 years old by myself, racing at six, and from the time I was 6 years old, it's pretty much been my job. Yeah, dad didn't take it lightly if we weren't winning races. So as long as I can remember, I've gone to the motocross races to win, and that's a job in itself, right there.
Yeah, and Mike, forgive me. How old are you now?
49.
Damn, dude, you
49. Yep.
look good, man.
49
And
years young. Thank you. I appreciate that.
and you still racing is from what I see.
Yeah, I just got back on bikes about 3 months ago, thanks to the guys over at Whiskey Throttle Media. Dave, Jeff, they're always down to hook me up. Last season, I decided I wanted to go ride with Colby Raha and go out, cruise the desert out where he lives in the Hellendale, Silver Lake area, and hit the X Games Quarterpipe that he invited me to come out and do. I did that for a little bit on a factory Husky 450 setup that Dave hooked me up with, and then it didn't last too long. I had other things going on, and then this year I heard about the Big Bear Motocross Grand Prix that we had in my hometown. So I hit Dave up, and within a couple days, he told me to go down to Kenny Watson's and pick up a bike. And they hooked me up with a Factory Honda Privateer Edition 250F. And I tell you what, that was one of the best bikes I've ridden. A lot of fun. I got to not only get out on the tracks and practice, I ended up doing a race shortly after I got the bike, which was the Swap Moto Series Triple Crown, which I've done the 2 rounds so far, and the third round's coming up in a couple weeks.
So how's that going? What are you doing in points? What class are you racing?
I'm racing the 40 plus open. So yeah, it's cool just to, be in the game where I belong. I'm 49, racing the 40 plus. 5 years ago was really the last race I did at Glen Helen, racing the 30 plus open class where I was winning. And on the same gate, they had a class called the 25 to 29 open, which is supposed to be a vet class. It makes absolutely no sense to me that they consider a 25-year-old a vet. But hey, that's what it is. It's changed nowadays from when I was younger. Because when I was younger, 30 plus was the vet class. But anyways, the guy that was behind me trying to battle with me, I thought he was in my class, so I was trying to hold him off. Next thing I know, Lapper bumps me into him. Scrub the tabletop, stay low, and this cat ends up going for it, lands on top of me, rips my throttle grip and my hand right off the bars, and blows my whole right hand apart. So that's what happened. That was 5 years ago at Glen Helen, and I'm just happy to be healthy. My job is tattooing. That's what pays the bills. So took me a couple months to get my hand back in shape to be able to hold a tattoo machine. But
Damn.
that's what I'm doing now. And in the last 5 years, I've got to do a lot of traveling with my new wife and kids. And after all that, we ended up back in Big Bear Lake, of all places. It's pretty much home for me. I've lived here on and off since out of high school. Graduated in '93, moved up to Big Bear to be a graphic designer for a mountain bike company, and just had different opportunities to move all over the place and do other things. So it's just good to be back in Big Bear full time. I love the seasons. As far as we got winter coming up shortly, within the next couple months, I'm sure we'll see our first snow. So,
Damn.
uh, yeah.
So there's a lot I want to ask you, but we'll start off with this. Are a lot of these on here your tattoos?
Let's go down a little bit. We got the spark plugs, the Mickey Mouse. Those two are mine. The next row, you got this other one with the eyeball popping out of the motor. All the other work on the screen is from Bree, Bree Crest. She's the owner of the shop, and just a super awesome woman to work with. Very dedicated to her craft as far as art and tattooing, and for me, just a great person to hang out with and tattoo and do our jobs, and do the best artwork we can to put permanently on people's skin.
Yeah, wild, 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 wild. Well, uh, what I didn't know that you were that talented with, a man of many crafts. What made you? Were you always a tattoo artist? Were you always just drawing around, and then after racing, you're like, shit, I want to go put some ink
Well,
in people's skin.
yeah. Well, when people ask me, like where did tattooing start, or doing artwork, I always kind of, it leads me back to really like being a kid and not having friends. Like I said, my dad had me on motorcycles at a very young age, and took it pretty serious. I never got to go hang out with kids as far as from school, and go stay the night at people's houses. That was just something that my dad didn't allow. So it was pretty much go to school, come home, ride my motocross track, or go riding with my dad out in the hills behind our house in Corona, where I grew up. And then after I'd get home, I'd get my homework done And most of the time, I'd already have my homework done, and I'd just sit in my room and draw. And that's pretty much, I'd say, what led to tattooing. When I was 18, I got my first tattoo. And then shortly after that, probably 2 weeks after I got my first tattoo, I was at a shop tattooing myself, learning how to set up the tattoo machine. And then the boss of the shop basically said, "Oh, cool. Looks like you know what you're doing. Feel free to bring friends into my shop as long as they got money. You can do what you want with tattooing." And it's cool. I didn't really apprentice. Nobody really taught me what to do. I think I taught myself what not to do for at least a year, and then kind of figured out of, the best way to make a good tattoo. It took years. I've got to travel, go to conventions, hang out with really cool people that have helped me out just to point me in the right direction. And I've owned my own shop in Lake Elsinore years ago. So yeah, it just kind of became my livelihood as far as doing permanent artwork on people, and that's what pays the bills.
Yeah. For from an adrenaline junkie like yourself, okay? Y'all, I'm assuming there's just that level of the zone, right? Where everything turns off when you're on a bike. I'm assuming, like that happens to us. That's why we're all get addicted to the gate
Hmm.
dropping, is because when the gate drops, the bullshit stops, the entire world turns off. And that's when you have like a man in a motorcycle in a peaceful setting, right? Until shit goes wrong and the bike blows up and you endo or something. But anyway, I digress. My point being, does that shit happen with when you're tattooing, where all of a sudden things just feel effortless and it's in the zone, or does it feel like work?
I would definitely have to say that until recently, I didn't really enjoy tattooing.
Huh.
It was just something, just going through the motions to get through it and make money. I've always, done the best job I can for my clients, but until recently, yeah, it wasn't something that I really enjoyed. It was always kind of a fight for me to go to the tattoo shop and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I gotta sit here for hours." I'm not a good sitter. That's what I have to tell you. Even sitting here right now, I'd like to go be out on my mountain bike and spinning around for the next hour, hour and a half, which I'll do that later. But yeah, the whole thing was sitting and holding a tattoo machine in one small spot for hours. It's hard. It's definitely something that just recently kind of came to the conclusion is like, this is what I do. It's a God-given gift to be an artist. It's, being doing art, painting, drawing, um, just throughout my life. That's something that I've always been able to fall back on especially when I've been hurt from riding motocross, or even freestyle. You know, the artwork's always, I'd have to say, saved my life as far as like getting a piece of paper and a pencil out, or a canvas and paint and paintbrush. I also, at a young age, probably around 14, 15, my dad bought me my first airbrush, which was really cool. I always wanted to be Troy Lee. As a kid, I thought it was amazing that Troy Lee painted helmets, and all the superstars of motocross had the sickest paint jobs. And, I really have to say, I think Troy Lee is the first guy to put paint jobs, really high tech art on helmets that, to me, it still blows me away. People getting high end paint jobs on helmets that they're going to go out there and scratch, and sometimes, crash so hard it destroys the helmet. And then next thing you know, they got to hang them up on their wall. But that's something I've kind of put aside. Within the last few years, I actually picked up my automotive paint, sandpaper, tape, and was painting for a while. But it just never feels like it's worth it to sit there for hours on end. It takes so much to prep a helmet, and then just all the different steps to get a really nice glossy finished paint job. To me, it's just not worth it. And the tattooing, I love tattooing because I get to the shop, I set up, I usually have a really early appointment. I like, get my appointments in at 8 o'clock to 9 a.m. I'm not the type of dude who likes to wait around till noon and then work all evening. I have kids I like to hang out with and my wife. So just like a regular job, get to work early, get set up, do the best job I can. And I've kind of went from the last several years where I was tattooing almost 6, 8 hours a day to now I kind of try to keep my schedule between 3 and 4 hours because of my right wrist. I guess my sports doctor's been telling me for years, probably at least 15 years, that I have permanent arthritis in my right wrist, which for me, holding a tattoo machine for hours on end, it starts to lock my wrist up, which even kind of hurts worse than being on my motorcycles or my mountain bikes. And so I really gotta like keep that in mind. And sometimes it's a bummer because I'm doing a pretty technical project for somebody and I know it's going to take 6+ hours to get it done, but I have to kind of plan ahead and go, okay, this is the puzzle piece. I got to put this first, get to a certain point within 3 to 4 hours, and then reschedule their next appointment to finish. Or even sometimes, working on a sleeve or a back piece, it takes multiple sessions. It sometimes takes years to get a piece of artwork done for somebody that's going to be that perfect piece of art they're looking for to wear permanently.
Damn, damn. Well, and that accident happened at Glen Helen, and I've seen some wild stuff at Glen Helen. Not to throw any shade, but I'm kind of throwing some shade here. I went down there for the Vet National one year, and that's when Mike Alessi ended up paralyzing an older guy because during the 125 pro race that was getting paid money, they had the 50 plus guys out there. So, and it was a 30-minute moto. So then after 15 minutes go by, Mike is lapping all these older guys that should have their own moto, and it almost sounds like a little bit of the same incident that happened to you with
For sure.
it.
Yeah, I think at the last race, I found out that the class that I'm racing, the 40 plus open, actually has every rider as far as from beginner to pro level riders in one class, which yeah, it doesn't really make sense, but I think for the promoters, they kind of have to do that because they want to fill up a gate, they want to keep the classes full. And yeah, it's definitely, I would say, a safety issue as far as having beginners, novice guys out on a track with intermediates and experts. And yeah, you really got to pay attention.
Yeah, dude. Well, here I wanted to give one of our viewers. They wanted to ask you a question, and so this is Brandon with Bem Raps. He says, "Where did the helmet spike come from?" Question mark. A wheel lug nut. So if you don't
A
mind
real luck.
elaborating.
Yeah, for X Games, was it 2002 where I ended up winning? I was rocking a paint job from Smith Designs, and yeah, that was the flying eyeball helmet. Probably one of my first flying eyeball helmets that a painter did for me. And yeah, he just surprised me with the big huge spike on the top, which was really cool. And I don't really know where the spike came from. I don't think it was from a wheel lug nut from like a car or anything. I think it was more so probably like bought it at a punk rock shop, something that adorn a leather jacket with. So yeah, it was super cool. Smith Designs did a couple different designs for me and actually did the design that Bell Helmets ended up producing and yeah, doing the signature Bell helmet for me. So yeah, shout out to Smith Designs. He did some cool stuff for me along with a lot of other painters that I've looked up to and kind of tried to do artwork on helmets just like them over the years.
Yeah. So was the eyeball your idea, or was that just something that Smith did?
Yeah, I think for me rocking a helmet without a visor definitely kind of came from like Matt Hoffman and Dave Mira, guys that I kind of pretty much looked up to. I think over the years I looked up to the BMX guys more so than any of the motocross dudes over the years, because I really have always enjoyed BMX freestyle, jumping, just the whole scene as far as BMX. It's always been a lot cooler as far as the vibe and the people doing it, not taking themselves so serious. And yeah, I don't know. I as far as the eyeball, I think once I decided I needed a paint job, I was just like, hey, I think an eyeball, a big eyeball on the front will look the best. And I've always been a fan of Big Daddy Ed Roth, Von Dutch, as far as being a kid and just looking at hot rod artwork. So I would say that's where the inspiration came from for the flying eyeball, and I just rocked it. And then all of a sudden, like Alpine Star, they're doing custom gear for me and throwing eyeballs all over. And yeah, it's kind of just been a Mike Metzger statement as far as the things that people have custom made for me over the years.
Yeah, I'm sure you have probably a couple of those chilling around in your house, don't you? I mean, you have to.
Unfortunately, all of my motocross helmets have been stolen. I do not have any helmets with custom flying eyeballs on them anymore. Yeah, unfortunately, I my house got ripped into one day. Came home from an event, I think I want to say up in Washington. Was driving my mini semi truck with my monster Weekend Warrior trailer. Came home to my property and parked it. Went home to my house. Came home the next day. My trailer had been broken into. All my gear, custom Alpine Star gear, had been ripped off. Then my house had been broken into, and I'd say 2 dozen of my helmets were stolen. And my favorite thing that I still miss to this day was at least 8 to 10 road race supermoto suits that Alpine Star custom made for me were stolen. These are custom road race supermoto suits that were one of a kind. And yeah, I don't really have any of my memorabilia. Uh, People just steal my stuff, man. One of my custom helmets that was done, I want to say AP Designs did my helmet that I used for Caesar's Fountains. That was a helmet that was in the showroom of Monster in a glass case, and somebody actually just went in and stole that right out of the office of Monster. I had another really cool helmet that Troy Lee did for me years ago that I want to say was a Fox helmet, and then it had like a really small, tiny NASCAR visor that Troy used to make. And yeah, that was on display at Troy Lee's, and somebody walked right in Troy Lee and took that right off the shelf and ran with it. So it's really hard to find any Metzger memorabilia nowadays because it's all been swiped from people. It's
Dude,
crazy.
what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
That's that's wild.
that's
Wild.
what I've said that. It's been kind of depressing over the years to think back and go, man, I had a lot of cool custom made stuff, from helmet paint jobs to road race suits to full motocross gear that Alpine Stars always made for me that was one of a kind, and it's all gone. It's
Do you
tear
think
breaking.
there's no way that that was like fans, because fans would I guess maybe there's some gnarly fans out there that are kind of stalkerish, but to me that
Yeah.
sounds like such a disrespectful thing to do. It had to have I, honestly, maybe it had to have been, because then why would people break into your house unless they were just driving by and they were just trying to, oh, they were lucky enough to break into your house. I don't know. That's
Yeah, no, I think it was people that knew me, were watching. And yeah, as soon as they knew they could get away with getting in there, it was crazy because when they broke into my house and they broke into my trailer, I was riding for SRH Clothing at the time, and the master bedroom of my trailer was filled up with brand new clothes from SRH Clothing. They swiped all the brand new clothes. They went through, grabbed my gear bags of all my new gear, and then I had a pallet of Monster Energy inside the back of the trailer. They must have stayed and hung out for quite some time because there was Monster Energy cans that were open and drank and like thrown over all around my yard. So I'd have to say it definitely wasn't one person that had done it. I think it was, maybe a handful of dudes that came in, broke the lock on the trailer, ended up, yeah, breaking the front door lock to get into the house. And it was a house I kind of used as like my storage. I had a little workshop down there to where that's where I would work on my bikes with my mechanic buddy. And yeah, it's just crazy to look back and be like, whoa, man, all that stuff's gone. And over the years, I've had people like reach out to me on Facebook, and somebody was like, hey, I'm down in San Diego, and this guy, I'm at his house, has a Metzger paint job of helmet that's all monstered out. And I'm like, oh, well, cool. Like, grab it for me and send it to me. And then it doesn't really go any further. And then one time somebody said they were driving towards Bakersfield, and they got a hold of me somehow and were like, hey, we're looking in the back of this car, and it looks like somebody's got your road race suits in the back of this truck, the pickup bed, heading down the freeway. And I'm like, oh, well, won't you take a picture of their license plate? There's not really much you can do. And then
yeah.
it kind of just falls to the wayside, and it's like, oh, thanks for reminding me that my stuff's gone.
Yeah, I know. That's the kind of shitty thing is like, let's just open the wound again on crap, you know?
Yeah.
Fuck, dude. Um, this is just a question for myself. The setup for freestyle. I'm assuming it just was super cross stiff, probably even more stiff than that because you're not really trying to lay it into corners or anything. You're just trying to set it up for a metal ramp and a gnarly landing, right? Like what was the key difference of your guys' setup? I know nowadays guys have crazy shit with the backflip bars so that they're flying off doing what is it called, the kiss of death, where
Yeah,
you're
they're
kind
doing
of
kiss
total.
of death backflips
Yeah.
and oh yeah. As far as the suspension setup, over the years I worked with Pro Circuit, Race Tech, and it's always started off with
Or was it more
Supercross.
motor? Like what was the big thing for setting those bikes up? Because are you shifting a lot for? Or are you just
Not
kind
too
of rolling?
much. As far as in freestyle, you're pretty much in second gear as far as, ripping around the course. Unless you have a big straightaway where you're trying to get from point A to point B and grabbing third to get over to a different part of the course. But most of the time it was first gear coming out of a turn to hit say a super kicker, a ramp to landing that was maybe 45 to 50 feet. You could hit that if your bike was geared right in first gear, and then the whole rest of the course just rip around in second. And as far as the suspension goes, I just remember always, asking for Supercross setup and then playing around with the Supercross setup and then usually going a little bit stiffer, but just kind of plush on the first 2 to 3 inches, just so every time you're landing, it's not so harsh. And over the years, I've had suspension that's just been so harsh that it just doesn't work. And then, especially like if you're out there doing no hander landers, you really need that top plush 3+ inches to get the bike to settle and get the lower center of gravity. If the suspension was super stiff and just didn't go through the stroke, then the bike would kind of deflect when it landed and then pop one way or another. And, of course, you're not holding on. So the bike would just do its own thing. But yeah, suspension was always the most important thing for freestyle. I did have Pro Circuit do a lot of engine work as far as making my bikes a lot more snappy, especially like when I was riding the Hondas. I think I want to say my favorite bikes for freestyle over the years were probably the 2002 to 2004 Hondas, Honda 252 strokes. They were bad to the bone, those bikes.
Wow. Okay, you guys, you when you were at the top of your game, it was no real four strokes in sight. Not really. The steering stabilizer came a little bit later, or correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you are landing with that stuff, how was it more of a finesse thing to make sure that you didn't just instantly nosedive? Because I know nowadays some guys have some really tight steering stabilizers, so when they land, that sucker's not going anywhere.
Yeah, when we first started doing no-hander landers, I would say probably the first guys doing them were like Mike Jones, Clifford Adantante, Trevor Vines. For me, I just wasn't into it. I wasn't into landing with my hands off the bars. I had to a few times, feeling like, oh man, I have to do this to try and win. And of course, freestyle's a judged sport, so yeah, I just always tried to do the best I could and really tried to stay away from not doing that. Where a guy like Mike Jones, he included that in his freestyle runs every time he rode and had a lot of big crashes. I remember for me, I had a massive no-hander lander crash at Havasu years ago, and I went for it was about 110-foot jump across the whole stadium, and yeah, I ate crap. I came up a tiny bit short when I landed. It was my very last jump, and I pile drove my face straight into the ground. Got up bleeding, ripped my helmet, my shirt off, and was like, ah. And my mom and dad were there. I'm sure my mom has scary memories of like, whoa, what's wrong with my kid? And my dad, it's funny because not too long ago we were talking, and my dad says to me, man, it's unbelievable how many times I thought you died at an event. Like, I just thought it was over, and I'm thinking, wow, that's crazy. Like, how many times? And he's like, dude, like so many times. I just like saw you crash, and I was like, man, it's over. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, Mike, good segue. What was the gnarliest injury you've ever been a part of?
I've had so many injuries, but the number one that sticks out in my head is Switzerland. I want to say it was probably around 2006, 2005. I was in Switzerland at a freestyle event at a World Supercross. Probably, I'd say probably 60,000 spectators inside indoor arena. There's a lot of people. And anyways, at the beginning of the contest, they kind of did it to where it was like, hey, let's do the biggest trick. We're starting off with who can do the biggest trick. And I went first jump, went for a backflip, knack, and that was one of my favorite tricks, just coming off the ramp, getting the bike completely whipped in a backflip, and then throwing a knack, and I kind of came up a tiny bit short, and basically my right foot slipped the foot peg, and then I ended up kind of belly flopping off of the seat and then getting kicked, and basically the bike got thrown out in front of me, and I basically supermaned right on top of the bike and took out my left testicle, just grenaded my testicle from my lower stomach area in between. So basically the foot peg smashed into me right above I'd say my unit, and then just ripping down between my rod and my left femur, leaving a gaping hole big enough to where
So you got rods in your legs too.
and I have rods in my legs. I've broken my femur 6 times, 3 times each. I've broken my back 6 times. I have metal in my lower back that I had to get repaired after doing the Queen Mary jump, where it's for the Discovery Channel Stunt Junkie show, where I did a backflip from barge to barge right in front of the Queen Mary, and just went a little too far on the landing. To right where I landed, the rear tire basically hit the bottom tranny and just sucked the bike in. Super harsh landing, and basically I landed so hard my L4 just crushed. And so now my L3, 4, and 5 lower vertebrae are fused, got 2 metal rods, and yeah, I've gotten through that injury. I've gotten through so many injuries my whole life. Like I kind of look back and I'm like, dude, I think since I was a kid racing, I was probably injured a lot more than I wasn't. Like I remember just traveling all the time and being hurt with, especially as a kid, going from race to race with my dad. Um, my dad was, it's funny because I'm right here at my kitchen counter table, and my dad was always saturating my body where my wounds were with this. It's called DMSO, and basically it's horse medicine. It's 99% pure DMSO gel formula, and yeah, you can only buy it at a horse feed store. So yeah, like a year ago, Colby Raha was complaining of some shoulder injuries, and we're on our way out talking to you, Wells, and I told him, hey, you need to get some DMSO. And so we stopped at a feed store on our way out there. He rubbed it all over himself, and by the time we got there, the pain had went away. It's
It's just like a topical like pain reliever is what it is.
yeah, it's pain reliever, but also it's got all kinds of different organic stuff in it, to where they put it on horses for, say, if like a horse breaks a bone, especially like a leg. It's like the last thing they can do is just like saturate a horse's leg with it, and hopefully it starts helping the bone grow within days, to where they don't have to put the horse down. So 3 weeks ago, just over 3 weeks ago, at the Big Bear MXGP, I ended up breaking my left tibia, cracked it all the way through, and the next day I wanted to go out and race, even with being in pain. But sleeping that evening before the race, I was in so much pain. I knew something was wrong. So I had my wife take me to the emergency room Saturday morning, got x-rays. And the doctor told me, after showing me my x-rays, like, hey, look, Mike, this is how it's broken. If you decide to go race today, you're definitely gonna break this chunk off, and then we're gonna have to go in and do surgery and put a screw in it. So I elected not to race the next day. Following week, I talked to Robbie Madison, because yeah, just called up Robbie because I told him I want to start riding with him and hitting his foam pit and his airbag and start, doing some freestyle again. And he's like, well, let's do it. Let's go tomorrow. And I said, well, my ankle's broken. So he pointed me in the direction to get some BPC 157, some peptides, and I
Yeah.
went and picked that up. And within 2 weeks, I was back on my bike racing the Glen Helen Swap Moto Series round two, where I ended up winning the first moto. Of course, 2 weeks out from breaking anything, you're still going to be in pain, but like I said, I've been in pain my whole life racing, so I'm kind of used to what I need to do to manage the pain. And that whole time, not only was I taking shots straight to my ankle of BPC 157, I was rubbing the DMSO on it. I was rubbing castor oil on it after the DMSO, which
Castor oil, why?
castor oil takes, it basically helps take the supplement directly into the skin. It's like one of the, a lot of therapists use it with the gels, the ointments that they use to get it into the skin and as deep as they can into the body. That's what castor oil does. It just helps absorb into the body. And then of course I've been using this, which is the best pain reliever I've ever used in my life. It's kind of new to the market, called Nano Extreme. It's cool because it's got DMSO in it, and it's actually
Hmm.
one of the only products that I've seen and used that has DMSO in it. I've been using it for quite some time, actually, even before I broke my ankle at Big Bear. I got this from a friend, and then after using it for a good month and promoting it through my social media outlets, they've helped me out. They've helped me out with a lot of different things, and yeah, I couldn't go through my days without using it, especially when I'm at the tattoo shop. Every time I'm getting ready to tattoo, before I put my rubber gloves on, I rub Nano Extreme on it. I try to get it in my wrist as deep as possible. Put my gloves on, and then I don't have pain for at least a few hours. So that's one of the things I recommend. I've been giving it to people that I come across all the time, and I've heard nothing but great things from it. There's a lot of motocross dudes that are using it. I sent some to Scott Byerly, who's kind of like the godfather of wakeboard freestyle. He's out in Florida, and he follows me on my Instagram, and he saw me pumping that product a while back, and he's like, "Hey Mike, how do I get my hands on some?" So I sent him some the next morning, and then the marketing guy for Nano ended up realizing that I've been talking to Scott about it, and he sent him a big box full of product. And yeah, there's a lot of people that are rocking that product just because we're all in pain, especially
Yeah.
motocrossers, action sports athletes. It's something you have
Yeah.
to have.
Okay. Loaded question. Two things, because anyone that races dirt bikes or just are on dirt bikes, freestyle, whatever, recreational or not, it's not a matter of when you crash, it's a matter of how bad it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of guys get addicted to pain meds. I mean, to be honest, I was addicted to Dilaudid for a little while, and that was some of the most, one of the like worst moments in my life was like getting off that shit. Um, and were you ever scared on racing where you're just like, all right, I'm done. I'm done. Like, uh, I'm sure in your career at some point, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
have you ever quit multiple times before on stuff?
Yeah, there's multiple times I've put down motocross, and luckily
Or
for me, I like I said, I've had my artwork to fall back onto and not have to worry about like what I'm gonna do next. It's always been like, hey, I don't feel like riding or racing right now, so I'm just gonna pick up my art tools and keep my mind off of bikes by doing my art. But yeah, I'll be honest. I was pretty much addicted to Vicodins at an early age, as far as through racing and being hurt, and that was probably like when I was between 19 and 20, maybe 19, 21 ish. Just from injuries that were lingering, and then being in that mind frame as far as for so long going, man, I have to race, I have to keep stay on my bike. And I just, after being on Vicodins for so long. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror one morning and just, being pale white, uh, having black hair, pitch black hair. Back then it was, the thing to be hanging out, thinking you're a punk rocker and dyeing your hair every single color you could throughout the month. But yeah, just looking back, I realized, luckily pretty quick, to where it was like, man, I don't want to ever take pills again. And for me, like even taking Advils, Motrins, anything like that, it's hard. Like after I broke my ankle 3 weeks ago, um I took Norcos for one day. The pain was so bad. I'm like, dude, I
Hmm.
have to. It's better than taking a shot of whiskey. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, um I've had my fair share of partying and drinking, and I know for me, putting down alcohol 3 years ago was the best thing I could have done back then. And so I haven't drank alcohol, but in moments of being in pain, it's like, man, nothing better than a shot of whiskey would just make me feel so much relaxed. But then again, you think about it and you're like, even that one shot of whiskey tomorrow, I'll be feeling it, I'll feel like crap. But yeah, no, it's definitely part of injuries for athletes to take painkillers. And then the hardest thing is really to just be able to be strong enough to get off of them. And over those times, since I knew I didn't want to fall back into addiction of pills, but I've been hurt so many times where it's like, okay, doctor prescribes me whatever kind of painkillers, I'll take them for 2 weeks. Because usually
Hmm.
for 2 weeks after a serious injury, the pain is like the most ridiculous. And then after 2 weeks, the pain kind of subsides. And then I would get rid of the painkillers and then just put up with that next week or two of moderate pain. And then you realize, like, after 3 to 4 weeks, a month of the injury, it just starts to go away. You start, feeling a lot better and back to normal. So I've been really good at managing pain my whole life since I was little, and it's crazy. I remember my first broken bone was at Corona Raceway on a 60 coming through the back turn, and lost the front end. Bike fell on top of my right ankle and crushed my ankle. That was the first experience as far as learning how motorcycles can break you off.
Here we got another viewer question here. This is one from Biff
If
Lugnut.
Lugnut, what's
Yeah.
happening?
What was it like behind the scenes back in the early days of the Crusty days?
Well, I'd say it was a party. Yeah, the whole crusty scene was brought to us by some crazy snowboarders, John Freeman and Dana Nicholson, and their crew of dudes came straight out of the snowboard scene. And back then, I'd like to think that those dudes were probably partying harder than anyone I've ever known. And that's kind of the whole snowboard scene is, a bunch of partiers traveling around, riding mountains. And yeah, it was just a big party. I'd have to tell you, that's, traveling, doing video shoots wherever we go. May not necessarily been, indulging in the party during our riding, but it was always at the end of the day, whether we're drinking or doing whatever. Um, it was always there. The party was always there as far as the crusty guys. That's what they did. And we got to travel around, ride a lot of cool places that I had never gotten to ride before. Traveled to Australia for the Crusty shows, put freestyle motocross on the map in Australia and other countries because of the Crusty guys. And yeah, that was definitely a wild ride.
Yeah. Well, Mike, what did you miss the most, or what do you miss the most about hanging up the boots with freestyle motocross?
Um, I don't think I miss anything as far as with freestyle. Uh, I just, in my head, at my age, and knowing that 15 years ago, I did the worst backflip I've ever done and blew apart my hip, dislocated my hip, blew apart my right femur with a femur rod inside my leg. So, for the last 15 years, I've been limping around thinking that my right leg was shorter than my left leg. And have no matter what I did, from whether it was hiking or riding my mountain bikes, it always felt like something was jabbing me in the outside of my right knee with a razor blade all day, every day. And I just kept thinking like, whoa, is this what's going on inside my knee? That ligament was rubbing over the top of the rod, and sometimes it would get caught and like snap off the rod. So it actually felt like my ligament on the outside of my right knee was like gonna slice off or slice apart. And then not until
Was it like
uh,
locking the knee? And was it
no,
the
it wouldn't lock it. It was just rubbing, constantly rubbing. And then, like going out and riding my mountain bike, whether, I'm doing a cross country ride or pedaling my ass off riding downhill. Um, it just always hurt, and especially at the end of the day, it would just, I'd be so sore from the constant rubbing of my tendon over that rod that was on the outside.
was it the
Well, that
bolts that it was rubbing on?
no, it was like the end of the rod. I actually have the rod somewhere in here. I think it's actually in my drawer. Um, but last year when I decided to go hang out with Colby Raha and ride his X Games quarterpipe ramp, after about a month and a half of riding that, my hips were so bad. And I feel like I really wasn't like doing anything as far as trying to be in shape to go hit the X Games quarterpipe ramp. And when I decided like it's time to do that, I've been waiting 17 years. Me and Ronnie Renner were the first dudes to go out and get to ride a quarter pipe built into the side of a hill 17 years ago. And then right after we did that, uh X Games kind of came to us, and at that time I wasn't doing good. I think I had problems with my marriage or whatever and wasn't really worried about bikes. But Ronnie Renner ended up getting a deal with Red Bull to do the quarter pipe world record for Guinness. And so they started working on building quarter pipe ramps. And for me, I always in the back of my head was like, man, I want to do X Games quarter pipe. If X Games is going to have that event, I need to be there. That's my event. And then the years passed and I didn't get to do the event. But then all of a sudden, Colby's hit me up and he's like, hey, dude, I got my freestyle park out here in Hellendale and I just live an hour away. So I went on April Fool's Day last year, just made a drive out there to go hang out with him, check out his freestyle park, check out the X Games ramp. And he's like, here, I have a bike you can ride inside my shed. And I'm like, dude, I ain't riding today. I hadn't ridden in a while. I might have like maybe done some dual sport riding with some friends of mine. But leading up to that, I hadn't been on a real motocross bike, let alone jumped anything for years. And so I told Colby and my friend Ham that hangs out with them, I'm like, dude, give me a month. Give me 1 month. By May 1st, I'll be ready to hit that ramp. Well, 3 weeks later, I was ready. I kept coming out to ride with them and ride a Husky that he had an extra bike. And I'd go desert riding, then slowly like hit the ramps he had out there. And then finally started jumping the 75-foot ramp again, and not really doing any tricks, just jumping and getting my body used to the constant pounding and landing. And then next thing you know, about 3 weeks out, came and I'm like, I'm ready, dude. I'm gonna hit that ramp. And it's, uh, to say the least, it's a little scary, to look at a full wall. I think the X Games quarter pipe's right around 20 feet tall. Right next to the ramp, he has the Nitro Circus quarter pipe, which is 30 feet tall. And then you have a gap between the ramps and the landing. And their landing is massive also. So it's just this big, huge monolith of wall in front of you that you have to just hit it and know in your head that you're going to hit it right and not get aired off the side of your bike, or you wouldn't want to just stall out straight up and then fall backwards, especially not land on the landing. But I was ready, and so after I hit it, I kept going back every couple days, and I would hit that ramp 100 times. I'd hit it 25 times, take a water break 25 times, hang out, sit on my truck gate 25 times, chill 25 times. I'd be done. I'd pack my bike. Cause then, yeah, cause also, Whiskey Throttle Media helped me out with a bike. Well, the bike I was riding had just regular outdoor suspension. I just was lazy and I couldn't get myself to take the suspension to somebody and have it stiffened up for me. So I just was riding the quarter pipe with outdoor suspension. And after a couple months, I was in a lot of pain, to where my hips felt like I needed hip replacement. Well, I went to my sports doctor. He took x-rays from my hips down to my knees and told me, hey, if we're going to do any surgery, it's going to be on your knees. Your knees are blasted compared to your hips. I was like, well, that's weird because my knees don't hurt me. It's my hips. And then he's like, well, your hips are okay. Just, start trying to exercise and get yourself in better shape. So I did. I started riding my mountain bike a lot more, which basically,
And how old
riding.
were you right around then?
This is last year. So
Okay.
just 48 years old, hitting the quarter pipe every couple days, hanging out with Colby and hitting that ramp 100 times every day I went.
Dude, and like whenever I've seen this, any sort of a quarter pipe, my hair stands up because I'm like, nobody in their right mind would hit this fucker because the ramp is straight up, the landing is straight down. If something goes wrong and you have to bail or anything, you're essentially SOL. You're a goner
Yeah,
because of how
I mean,
high straight down.
and I was going at my highest, I was going probably 45 feet, give or take, where
Dude,
Colby's going an extra 10 feet. And that's just, to me, suicidal. But like Colby says, it's all calculated and he'll take those risks for a
what's
gold medal.
what was scarier, the X Games step up or the half pipe?
The half pipe all or the quarter pipe all the way. That is, I mean, you're looking at a wall. You're hitting it second to third gear, depending on how you want the bike to rev out off the lip. And yeah, I have the chills actually thinking about it right now because it's insane. It's just one of those things
How
you
how
gotta.
how do you even hit that thing? Do you start off by like, because you have to get high enough to where you can whip to come around. It's not like you can come off in first gear and just kind of because then you're not
No,
going to be
you
able to.
have to commit. And that's one of the things that was cool about Colby. I knew exactly in my head how to do it, but having the gold medalist as my buddy and pretty much talk me through what I needed to do, it's just, nothing better than having the best dude work with you and be like, hey, you come into the ramp, you're going to get on the gas, you're going to go as high as you can, and you're going to just twist. You literally have to take and throw your hips pinch the bike and throw your hips as hard as you can to get the bike to start rotating. And that's one of the things I felt that was really hurting my hips, was that motion of just taking the bike and twisting as hard as you could to get the rear end to come around. And not only was that sore on your hips, but when you hit into the bottom of the ramp, that tranny, your hips are kind of wanting to fold in on you. Then you're up in the air, you twist your hips, and then the next thing is, watch as he's landing, you see his hips are like coming down into the seat. So it's just like a full hip gyrator. You really got to be in shape. I'd say, going to the gym and doing a lot of leg presses and a lot of sit-ups is probably the best thing you could do to make sure your body's in shape for that particular event, or as far as
What's
quarter pipe.
gnarly about that, Mike, is that there is no room for error. Like practicing for Supercross nowadays with the foam pits, like I don't think you could get maybe you could get a foam pit to jump into on the quarter pipe, but that's going to be a hard impact. Just jump straight down into a foam pit. Like,
Yeah, I know some of the riders have played around with airbags, but as far as these dudes going out there and just having it on lock, whether it's Colby or Axel Hodges, hands down, one of the coolest things I've seen off that quarter pipe is Axel doing the alley oop. How do you practice that? You
yeah,
don't. He
yeah.
just decided, like, he had it on lock in his head. I'm sure he could picture doing it night after night after night, thinking about it, and then going up and serving that shit, man. Like, there's nothing more hardcore than Axel Hodges doing a freaking gnarly alley oop and landing that off of the quarter pipe to a huge dirt landing. Like, props out to that dude. That is hardcore, dude. Like, and I've always thought about that over the years, even before there was quarter pipe anything. I've just always been, that kid picturing what you could do on a bike, especially you watch dudes on a freestyle ramp, on a BMX. I've always thought, like, if they can do it on a BMX bike, it can be done on a motocross bike. It's just the consequences are like 100 times worse.
So here, I wanted to, here, let me remove this, and I don't have my typical studio here, so it's harder for me to get all this stuff on here. But here, let me, nowadays, Mike, everyone has foam pits, right? And so, yes, it's still going to hurt a lot, but there's you don't need to have 1000% commitment, because if you end up going, all right, I'm not quite ready, well, there's the foam pit to save you. When you were at the top of your game with the backflip, it was just, hey, I'm just fucking sending it, you know? And if you can talk a little bit about the race between you and Carey Hart, and maybe even, I think Deegan was a little bit after your time, but what was going through your head? And because for a while there, you had like the entire sport on lock. You were the Jet Lawrence of FMX for a little while because of your ability to do this. So here, let me look.
Well, thank you. That's yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate you. Um, I think as far as in my head, that it was in my head for years and years and years since I saw the BMX movie Rad, and seeing a guy on a bicycle do a flip, and I just kind of knew in my head from that time that I would be doing a backflip on a dirt bike. And then, of course, I think it was 2000, Gravity Games 2000, where Carey came out and went for the backflip, and didn't right away. I just knew that it was time to make it happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts in my head that I couldn't not do it, and want to be the guy who rode away from it. And yeah, I just think that constant thought process of like, not only thinking about it, but I've always wrote and drawn in journals. And for a long time, I would draw, like here's the takeoff, here's the landing, here's me. This is where I need to be at midair, looking at the landing. And so, for doing that process in my mind over and over again, finally it was, time to go get it done, especially when Carrie Hart and my friend TJ Lavin hit me up at an event, I think in Minden, Nevada or something. We did a freestyle show, and TJ was there, and he's like, "Dude, X Games is coming up. What are you gonna do? What's your big trick gonna do?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really, I don't know. I'm just gonna go up there and ride, do what I always do." And he's like, "Dude, you have to do something. Is it going to be a 360? Is it going to be a backflip? Like, come on, man. Take your ramp out to the sand dunes and let's send something." And right away, TJ unlocked that thought where I'm like, "Dude, he's right. Why don't take one of my ramps out to the desert and just send it? So let's go. Let's do it. Let's take my ramp out to Dumont Dunes and let's send a backflip. Like that's the best way to make this happen." And I did. I went out there super late one night, stayed the night with a handful of buddies, and we ended up taking the ramp off my trailer first thing in the morning, setting up to a pretty nice peaked out landing, and I went and sent it. And I came up like just short enough to where the bike framed the landing, the peak, but I came all the way around. I pulled, came all the way around, and I
And this was your
saw,
first go. This was like the first time you ever
yeah,
went for a backflip.
yeah, off of a ramp to a landing, which the landing was, super soft, Dumont sand. I had already done it into foam pits on a bicycle at a place that was kind of like Woodward down in Temecula. And then a buddy of mine had property in Lake Elsinore, and he had cut out a dirt quarter pipe into the side of his hill, and I was throwing backflips off that into the side of a hill. So I go raw flip, and as I was coming around, I'd be landing into the hillside, but I just step over the front of the bike. So like I knew like, okay, as long as I'm peeking out, I'm seeing the landing, the bike's going to be in this position, and I would just step over the front of the bike. And the
So,
bike would destroy itself because it's falling back down the hill. I'm landing super soft and safe because I'm going up and then landing on my feet and my hands, but the bike is getting destroyed and pummeled back down the hillside. I was getting free bikes back then, so it didn't matter, and I had mechanics, so um
but this
yeah,
was your practice routine for trying to feel
leading
comfortable.
yeah, just leading up to going, okay, it's time to take that ramp and get it done off of a ramp that we use at X Games and other events like Gravity. And so, yeah, that morning at Dumont Dunes, I went for it. You could check it out too. It's on Dave Dawes's footage on YouTube. And yeah, the first one I came all the way around, but I was about a foot short, maybe 2 feet short to where I'm gonna case into the landing. Instead of taking the case to my ankles, I just stepped right off the side of the bike and came down in the sand. Well, that first attempt, when the bike landed, it fell onto the left radiator and crushed the radiator. So um the radiator was like crushed up under the front fender, and the bike was like really hard to go straight, and it was leaking coolant. And I'm like, oh shoot, well, before this bike quits working, I got to go send it again and get that second hit in. And I knew it would be the same thing. We didn't have time to move the ramp in. I just knew that, hey, I got this dialed. I have to send another one before we pack my bike in the ramp and go home. And so I did. I turned around, hit it again. It was basically the same exact thing. Came all the way around, came up short, stepped off the side of the bike. And TJ and all my buddies were like, "You did it. You know how to do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do know how to do it. Let's load this bike up and get out of here." And by the time I got
And this was
home,
before doing it completely clean.
yeah, this was right before I got home, and within days, uh, I had all the X Games cameramen at my house getting ready to film me for X Games commercials of me doing the backflip. Because when I left Dumont Dunes that day, before I got home, I got a phone call from one of the X Games executives saying, "Hey, heard you're doing backflips now. Is that true?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, will you do it for our cameras for commercials leading up to X Games?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem. When you want to come over?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll be there in the next couple days." So, got my bikes all dialed in, and they showed up super early. Had all their camera dudes out in my yard at my freestyle park, and the very first flip that I did, I pulled it. Not one camera was on. Yeah, they didn't even, their cameramen didn't even have their cameras ready to go. And I pulled that, rode away, and then
And so this was
like,
the first time you ever really did it clean.
yeah, first time like riding away. And nobody had their cameras on. None of my friends. I had a
Wow.
bunch of friends there. And I was just excited. Like I knew I was ready. I wanted to do it and get it out of the way. And so the camera dudes were like, and then one of the guys calls me over and he's like, "Hey Mike, like we didn't get that. We weren't able to film that. Can you do it again?" I went, ripped another one, and on my landing I had hay bales. I don't know why, other than I just thought like if I was gonna come off the bike, I could jump onto the hay bales. Well, that next attempt I ended up clipping with my rear wheel. I came all the way around, clipped the hay bales, and it kind of stopped me and threw me forward. I crashed, got right up, did it again. Boom, clipped the hay bales. Boom, fell. And then I'm like, dude, I got to get rid of the hay bales. They're in my way. So I had my buddies clear the hay bales out of the way. And then I went and did three in a row.
Dude,
So
but how
that,
gnarly to crash twice and not just be like, "All right, I'm packing up. That's it. I This is going bad. I'm gonna get hurt." But to just be like, "No, fuck it. Let's do it." Dude,
yeah,
that's
at that time, I was wearing like a full gnarly armored suit that I had used for downhill mountain bike racing throughout the years. It was made by Denisi. Now Alpine Stars makes one, and they started making it because of me rocking that full body armor, elbows, had like straps to bring your shoulders in and tighten your shoulders against your collarbones, full back protector, chest. Yeah, it
is that what
was,
you were running when you did the double in a row?
yeah, yep. That's exactly what I was wearing with a tank top over it.
Yeah.
And so that was really good protection as far as being able to take a beating, probably better than football pads. And so I just got up and ended up after that second crash, moved the hay bales, and then pretty sure I did three perfect flips and called it a day. And then and I think that was July 2nd. Yeah, because 2 days later, I took a break that following day because I was pretty beat up and sore. And on July 4th, 2 days later, I'll remember this forever because it was 4th of July. I went out early in the morning and I did 21 backflips in a row and called it a day. I just did back to back to back to back and counted every single flip, and they were all perfect, 21 of them. And after that, I knew this was like norm. It was just going to be a normal thing every time I went and did a freestyle contest or just rode, just practiced. it was normal to just send a backflip. Yeah.
Wow. And what was that feeling like, Mike, to show up at one of those competitions and essentially know that you're gonna win because you can do something that no one else can? You know, like that's a
uh,
very rare thing for like anyone to ever experience.
yeah, it was cool. Just, I think the main thing for me was to not get too excited. I think a lot of times I hurt myself at contests or races because of just being overly excited and letting that excitement get the best of me. So I think just having it on lock and treating it as just as normal to jump a regular ramp jump, it just became norm. And so I didn't really try to think or hype myself up any more than just being there to do a regular event. And it was cool because going into X Games, I knew that Kenny Bartram had been playing around with doing flips on a dirt cliff and basically off the step up lip, like Kerry had done it a couple years before at Gravity. I knew that, like, man, there's a good chance that I'm gonna win this X Games because I'm doing it off of a ramp, and I saved it for the finals to do the 80-foot ramp that came after the 45-footer. I just knew, like, as soon as I got to X Games, I'm walking the course and I like saw the biggest, most massive BMX style dirt to dirt jump that I knew in my head. Like, if I don't flip this after the 45er, that it just, that was the ramp that I was flipping all the time. So that was a no brainer. I just knew I had to flip that. But I knew in my head, if I didn't flip the next jump, I was missing out on a lifetime of looking back and going, dude, that was the biggest, best thing that I could have possibly done. And I did it. And it was awesome. And to even look back now, and I run into people all the time. They're like, dude, I was there. I was at a bar. I was at a family party getting ready. We were there to watch X Games. And that was the most exciting thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, it's cool to be able to hold on to memories like that. And then I shared it with my family, and it's freestyle motocross. You never know what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
when it's in your head, you better get it done. Cuz there's other things that I've done, like, we had a chance to do Winter X Games up in Aspen, and one of the coolest things also that I got to do was a 110-foot backflip knack for the first time. The first time I ever did a backflip knack. I had never even done it in my yard. I just showed up and was like, dude, that's the sickest jump ever. I'm sending a backflip whipped out knack. And I can look back at those
Just
pictures
there
and
on competition, it's just you just decide, hey, this is happening.
yeah, yep.
Ah, wow.
Super rad just to be able to, and feel like it was a godsend, as far as in my mind, going like, hey, you ride every day, you do this every day, you know what you're doing. And then just to be able to pop it off like that and be like, dude, it happened, I did it, yay.
Damn. Mike, your competition, were they just elated for you, or was there a little bit of jealousy with, oh fuck, or was there a little bit of like people being scared going, hey, if I ever want to beat this guy, I need to do a backflip now? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think as far as the whole backflip deal coming into the scene, a lot of guys knew it was over for them. Guys didn't want to step up anymore and be like, no, it's already, the consequences are ridiculous. To go backflip is not something I'm going to try. So a lot of guys just parted ways with freestyle because they couldn't even show up to a demo anymore without people going, "Are you gonna backflip? Are you gonna backflip?" And so I think that got to a lot of dudes' heads. And for me, over the years, I came out of motocross racing. Motocross is way gnarlier, I always felt, to get on a starting line with 20 to 40 dudes on a start going into turn one, and then being out there to win, because that's all motocross is has always been to me, is like, we're here to win. And the only dude as far as competition for me, not that I was worried about it, I kind of just knew, like, Pastrana was the dude. And I had known him from a very early age. Like, I had been doing motocross amateur nationals, and I'm a little bit older than him, but I always remember seeing that kid at world minis and all the big amateur nationals, and just knew that that kid is, his mind frame was even another level than mine, to where that dude would just do crazy stuff. And that he would do stuff even going, I could get really hurt. Like, I don't think I ever had that in my head where I went out and did a backflip or did the backflip knack over 110 feet at Winter X Games on ice. Like, it was never in my head that I'm gonna get hurt. I was confident enough to go, I'm doing this and I'm going to stick it. To where a lot of dudes, I think, especially stepping up to do backflips and tricks, they were like, dude, I could seriously end up in the hospital or die. And I never wanted to have that in my mind. Like, I never wanted to be an evil Knievel, and have that in my head where, like, hey, I'm going to go try to do this jump. It was never try for me. Like, when freestyle first started happening, I would show up to events and I wouldn't even ride practice. I would just show up and unload my bike right before we have to go out for the show with a stadium full of people and go do my
Whoa!
runs.
Hold up. So you would declare not to go ride practice, not to go test out the 45, 70-foot jumps. You'd wait till
Yeah,
the
back
night
then,
show.
well, back then it wasn't ramps. Everything was dirt. So it was dirt lips with dirt landings in these little arenas, like, oh, what was the Duck Pond, Anaheim Duck Pond was like one of the last contests that I think it was the IFMA, the promoter, before they ended up selling the whole sport of freestyle over to Pace, who was running Supercross at the time. So, like, that whole series, I just didn't care to go practice. I don't know. I almost didn't even want to be there during that time. It was just like, I have to do this because my sponsors are paying me to be a freestyle guy. I wanted to be at the motocross races, banging bars and trying to do the best I could. I want to say I wanted to be at the motocross, supercross races to win, but as far as my best finishes were, I think I got a sixth place back when I was riding for Moto Triple X in 2008. Outdoor Nationals, I want to say I got a 12th place at Glen Helen. But in my head, I've always been a motocross racer, and that's why I'm still motocross racing. And at my age, like, that's what makes me happy. But for freestyle, it was just something I was like, dude, I can't believe I have to be here and show off and just do these jumps out there by myself getting judged. And yeah, I think the IFMA series that year, I won every single event and didn't even practice. I just showed up and did what I felt like I needed to do, and the judges gave me first place every time. And
Was
I
there show money there, or was there pay money for winning?
yeah. Well, the very first contests where you'd win $10,000. But then
Damn.
all of a sudden, Pace bought the IFMA, and it went from winning $10,000 to winning like $1,250. The sport just
Wow.
went as far as us making a living, but I was still making sponsorship money, on salary from sponsors to go and be at these contests, because that's marketing. Sponsors want to pay the number one guys to be out there and wear their product, wear their helmets, wear their jerseys. And it wasn't fun for me. I wanted to race. I am a hardcore motocross racer because that's what my dad made me. And that's still why I love to be out at Glen Helen for the Triple Crown Series, or showed up to Big Bear to race, because I love racing. It's fun getting the whole shot and being out front, but I actually kind of enjoy, like, not necessarily getting the whole shot and passing dudes and like having a battle. Like, there's nothing funner than being on a track and battling dudes out there who are fast. Like,
Hmm.
some of the best memories I have are of battling Brian Deegan on the motocross track, and Kerry Hart, these dudes that I got to grow up with and not only race with them but party with them and have good memories of just, having good friends that we enjoy the same thing, like being hardcore motocross racers.
Mike, so tell me to shut the fuck up if I get this wrong. So even when you did the double backflip and you were at the time the best in the world in FMX, were you still a little bit like, damn, I wish I was
Always.
this, but for moto?
Always, dude. That's why, like, I got into racing supermoto, and I'm the dude who started racing supermoto just because I thought that racing a motocross bike on the dirt and the street was something unbelievable. It was just such a good feeling to be on a motocross bike and be sliding as fast as you can across the asphalt and the two-wheel drift. And I get that because at a young age, I wanted to race MotoGP. I wanted to race road race bikes, super bikes, and my dad was like, "No way, dude. You're not racing the street." My dad is a hardcore motocross guy. It's all about dirt. But for me, like when I was a kid, and I remember like satellite dish TV had 1,000 channels. What was I doing? I would be clicking through every channel, and I would stop at road racing, watching Superbike, MotoGP, and I always was attracted to going fast. And I knew the MotoGP guys were racing motorcycles at 200 miles an hour. That's what I've always wanted to do. And my dad was like, "No way, dude. Go jump this 100-foot jump at 9 years old. You can jump this." And like for me, growing up with a hardcore dad, um, or I would think any kid that looks up to their dad, if your dad tells you to do something, it's on your heart to go do that. Like, I wasn't going to let my dad down ever. So I look back and I'm like, dude, I can't believe my dad tell me to go do this 100-foot plus jump, or throughout Supercross. My dad was my mechanic for a lot of years, and we'd be walking the track and he would tell me, "Hey, you could do this on, off section." That back then, like, riding a 125 was crazy, but I would do it, because I didn't want to let my dad down. And if my dad told me, "You can do this," I believed, like, I can do this. And there was a lot of times I made those jumps, and a lot of times I ate big shit and crushed myself over and over and over again. But I'm still alive. I'm still surviving. I still have stories to tell and memories that are just
Is your dad still around?
insane. Yes, my mom and dad are still together. They've raised me being the oldest, and I have two younger sisters, Michelle and Megan. My youngest sister, Megan, has a son named Nixon Meineke. He's a young racer, super fast. And then my sister Michelle has a son named Memphis, and he's super talented. He's like one of those crazy wheelie kids on the e-bikes, like rides a Saran and, dances around on a seat. Super talented, whatever these kids get into, whether it's their motorcycles, their bicycles, skate, surf, they're good at everything.
Yeah.
And I
Do you have
think
any
it runs
kids,
in the blood.
Mike?
Yes, and then my kids are ridiculous. I have a 24-year-old daughter who's a full artist, musician, writes music. She just recently moved back to Big Bear. That's my daughter Michaela. And then I have a son named Myri that grew up racing motocross. I got him into downhill mountain bikes at a young age to where that dude won some mountain bike national championship stuff, and then told me at a young age, like, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to just hang out with my friends and snowboard. And I was heartbroken because we had a really rad mountain bike downhill race shop here in Big Bear and Metzger World Bikes, where I had a contract on the table with Common Saw Bicycles to do a junior development team with my son Myri being the guy. And he
Wow.
just up and quit. He didn't want to do it anymore. And I always told my kids, like, don't do this because it's my passion. Do what you want to do. Like, you're good at everything. And so Myri, he's 22 years old. He lives up in Tahoe, Truckee. He's a pro snowboarder, gets paid to travel around during the winter and does his thing. He did exactly what he told me he was going to do, and he's making money being radical. His big trick is like sending 80-foot plus jumps with his back foot unstrapped and doing like these huge twisted knacks upside down, backflip. I don't know what you call them, but I have
And
a
then
pic.
getting back in his bindings before
Yeah,
landing.
and then stepping back on his board and riding away, not in the binding, but like on the
Ah,
board pad. And then my son Maxton, he's 16, and the dude's crazy. Like, he just started sending double backflips last year during winter, up here in Big
on
Bear,
what?
or on a snowboard. He actually is super talented. He grew up racing BMX. He's done a lot of downhill mountain bike racing, but for him, he kind of wants to follow in his brother Myri's footsteps. He's always been that kid. It's like, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. And not only does he tell his older brother that, he tells all of his friends that. I'm actually surprised that he has any friends. He'll laugh about that, but all his friends are super radical snowboarders, and he's always been kind of that timid kid where I never really thought he would push himself the way he started to last year. And the dude is sending huge double backflips on a snowboard, and at his age, people are looking at him. He's sponsored by the same snowboard company that his brother is, Signal Snowboards. And yeah, I just see that he's got a lot of drive. He's probably had more days on the mountain than any other person up there, because we lived right across from the mountain to where every day the dude was there when the lifts opened, and he was the last one for when the chairlifts closed. So kid has a lot of dedication. And he just got a motorcycle. He got sponsored by an e-power sports company called Altus. So he's been
Yeah.
motocrossing, going out to the local sand track with me and putting in laps. And he's just always been that kid that just gets on something and then just does it until he's,
Are you worried about them getting hurt at all?
I think it's normal, but I mean, I can look back at my dad and what he pushed me through, and I feel like the ones that are pushing you to go out there and do your best and know that you can do better, those are the people that love you and care the most about you. It's not that they're trying to get you hurt. They just believe in you. They know you have the skills to do it. And for me, I think whether it's my kids, my sister's kids, it's in the blood. My dad, like I said, is a hardcore motocross racer. He grew up racing. like right out of high school from Huntington Beach, was just always into motocross. My grandpa, which my grandpa Fritz, who's my dad's dad, he was into bikes. He's straight out Austrian German dude and just always pushing himself. I remember seeing pictures of my grandpa in Austria jumping off of like a 3-story roof on ice skates. You know, it's just in the blood to push ourselves and be crazy.
Damn. Yeah,
My
I did
mom,
not
my
know that you're.
mom, my mom rode a Mako 490, and I remember being out in the hills behind where we lived in Corona riding with my mom who, she won't accept the fact that she's crazy, but I think a lot of it comes from my mom's blood too. It's just my parents are nuts.
Yeah, and it sounds like you still have a good relationship with your parents,
I
which is
do.
rare, which is incredibly rare. Especially for like a professional athlete like yourself. Which
Yep. No, it's cool. I talk to my mom and dad almost every day. They live out near Lake Elsinore Canyon Lake, kind of where I'm from. And of course, I live in Big Bear Lake and at the top of the mountain at, I think we're at 6,800 elevation. I love it. And it's super easy to drive off the mountain and get to the beach, which is a couple hours away, hour and a half to go see my parents, my sisters. Um, yeah, we do a lot of driving. I don't mind, especially lately, like going to see sponsors. Matter of fact, today I'm going to Alpine Star to go pick up my new leather suit and road race stuff. Because this weekend I'm racing for the first time the Baggers Racing League in Las Vegas at the Motor Speedway during the same time that the SMX is going on. I'll be out on the road course jamming, hopefully reaching speeds of maybe 150 on an XR air cooled Harley.
hell
Stoked.
yeah, dude. F and A. I'm going to be in Vegas too at the SMX race. And so if anything happens, I might have to run over there if it all works
Yeah,
out.
I'd love to. I'd love to shake your hand, Johnny, and yeah, talk some more.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I think this is a decent. Okay, two things, because like I said, this is a decent point to wrap it up, but because I don't want to keep you too long because you got a big deal with A stars coming on here. But real quick, this is totally a ignorant question. Okay, so just tell me as if like it was Chat GBT, and you're like, answer as if I was a toddler. How is it that you do these massive tricks off of just a motorcycle and a freestyle ramp or dirt? Are you already having the trick executed? Because I doubt you can push off the motorcycle very much in the air because there's nothing holding it down. So are you literally right at the last second to do a Superman or a kiss of death or anything, pushing off right at the tip of the jump? Or is the actual execution happening while midair?
Well, I think every trick's different, and then you got the thought process of hitting the ramp and what you're gonna do. Um, when freestyle first started, it's just me and a handful of dudes out there pushing ourselves to do whatever the trick we thought we were gonna do. Um, And then all of a sudden it kind of went to like, Nate Adams getting into it and guys writing down their whole trick list on their bar pad, which to me was kind of weird. Like I tried doing that, but it just didn't work as far as having, I don't know the word to say. I feel like it's more like you're writing, yeah, to me, writing everything on my bar pad and knowing ahead of time what I was going to do, that process to me felt like being a robot. So for me, I liked just spur of the moment. Like however I felt at the time I'm heading to that ramp, it would click into my head. Oh, I'm gonna do a freaking laid out whipped Superman knack off the side of my bike, or right now I'm gonna do an underside whip or double can. it was just that spur of the moment off the top of my head, as far as that's how I felt comfortable, and I still feel comfortable that way, because I think with motocross, it's you can't plan ahead. You can have all these scenarios in your head how it's going to work off of the start, but when you're on the track and you're battling dudes or you're out front, the track's constantly changing lap after lap, and so you just have to be aware and know what's this split instant. You have to know, like, this is gonna happen. And so for me, like with freestyle, that's always how it's been. Like,
So that was just the racer in you that was.
yeah, I think so. I think so. And that's,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any sport out there that these dudes are thinking in split moments, changing lines, uh looking ahead, what you have to do as far as getting around, passing somebody. A lot of times I think, as far as a racer, you're already have ideas 2 to 5 turns down the track. You're not thinking about what's right there in front of you. You're actually thinking down the track and the lines that you're going to take to have faster lap times, to gain on the dude behind you, or to gain on the guys in front of you. And that thought process, I don't think there's any other sport in the world, even race car driving, they're driving on a flat surface. Where
Hmm.
motocross, it's constantly changing. You're on the motocross track for 2 35-minute motos, plus 2 laps. Like, I think a motocross moto is right around 40 minutes. And that's hardcore to be out there pushing yourself with 20 to 40 other guys, depending on if it's supercross or outdoor nationals. Um, and then let alone what your body's going through as far as being beat up, riding whoops, landing off of 100-foot jumps over and over again. I just think that motocross, hands down, is the most hardcore thing that any human being can do. And I watch Hayden Deegan. I'm a huge fan. Jet Lawrence, I'm a huge fan. And that's like the only two guys to me that matter, because next year Hayden and Jet are going to be racing each other. No one else exists.
Okay,
Period.
okay, putting you on the spot. That's
They're just in
exactly
the
good
picture.
segue. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win on a 450, Jet or Deegan?
It's going to be hard. It's hard to say who's going to come out with the championship, but honestly, I don't think Jet and Hayden are going to get beat too often by anyone else. It's going to be those two,
So you
I
think they're gonna
feel.
go kind of this guy wins a couple, this guy wins a
I
couple?
do. I do. It'd be unbelievable if Hayden comes out and he just all of a sudden is the next Ricky Carmichael and beats Ricky Carmichael's um, you know, records, because hands down, I think Ricky Carmichael for outdoor nationals is the best dude ever on a motocross bike. And then Jeremy McGrath, hands down, is the best supercross racer. And the records show. So if one of these dudes can pull it together, which it's obviously, I don't think, going to be Jet, because he's already, I feel like he's already thinking about Hayden. Jet's already knows that this dude is coming in to beat his ass. And he and there I think it's funny. I grew
Oh,
up with Hayden's dad.
yeah.
Brian and I have known each other since we were probably racing each other at like 10 years old, from racing 60s all the way up. And I remember having great battles with that dude, and I just think that his kid is on a whole nother level. The kid's a character. He's not worried about anyone beating him. And it's funny because I remember talking to Brian, driving in the truck with him one day when our kids were little, and he had his kids. He had his daughter Haley and getting Hayden, they were racing the little tiny off-road trucks. And Brian's like, yeah, dude, I do not want to have my kid racing motocross because we know it's hardcore and the consequences are second to none as far as getting hurt. And so to me, I know that Hayden is that kid that just wanted it more than anything else. It wasn't because his dad pushing him. It was because Hayden's like, Dad, this is what I'm doing. I want to do this. And for any kid to have that mentality to go out there and do something they want to do, let alone have all the support. His parents have sacrificed a lot to give that kid what he knows he wants, and that's to pack up, leave their home in California, and go chase the dream. You know, they're living in North Carolina so they can be close to their team, to be with people like Eli Tomac, Ricky Carmichael. He has it all. He has more than everyone. His package is perfect, let alone the kid is a character. People may not like him. You know, he comes
You
across
just
pretty
have to
sad.
respect his drive is the thing, is because he didn't have to go racing. Like when I look
No,
at it, it's just the kid could have just done something else and hung out on the boat. But
for
no.
sure. For sure. No, he just wants to be number one. And not only is he going to do whatever it takes to win as many races as he can, his family is unbelievable. The support that he gets from his dad, his sister, brother, mom, the team. I don't think anyone has that package. I don't think Jet has that. Even though he is amazing, his brother Hunter is amazing, his parents are amazing, but they aren't hardcore like Brian Deegan. And I grew up with that dude. We've had our problems, but hands down, he's the most radical dude I raced motocross with and hung out with and got to travel around the world and freestyle motocross with and entertain people that love what we do. So it's going to be awesome to see next year's 450 racing. Awesome. I know so many people are just looking forward to seeing those two guys out on the track. And to me, it's like everyone else is just background noise. Boom. I think the show is over. Where'd you go, Johnny Hopper? Woohoo! All right. Time is up. Time to get my stuff done. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. MX Unfiltered with Mike Metzger and Johnny Hopper.